This video on my 11th great grandfather, John Mason, known historically as the Conqueror of the Pequots, originally appeared on Gentales on Substack, and that is linked below if you're interested in any additional information. Hi, I'm Alicia. Welcome to Gentales, where genealogy meets history. As I mentioned at the end of my last video on the Merchants Guild and colonization, today I'm going to tell you about my 11th great grandfather. Yes, 11th. He was English and lived from about 1600 to 1672. I've traced the paper trail back through the Lincolns to the Applins, Paynes, and then Fitches, with a lot of names from families involved in the founding of Windsor, Connecticut, and surrounding areas, including Norwich. He's rather famous, well, infamous these days. His statue on the green in Windsor has been the center of controversy for years because people started asking whether the man who was given the glory for the mystic massacre should be put on a pedestal. So let's talk about my controversial 11th great grandfather. John Mason was baptized in Ravensthorpe in Northamptonshire, England in October 1600. His father was Richard Mason and his mother is thought to have been Alice Butlin. His adulthood is fairly well documented due to his success in the English and colonial militaries. He first joined the English military in his early 20s and served in the Netherlands during the early to mid part of the 30 Years' War. When he arrived in Dorchester, Massachusetts in 1632, he was appointed captain of the local militia and led naval attacks against pirates along the coast, helping shore up the defenses of Boston Harbor. He was well respected among colonial Massachusetts society. Mason represented Dorchester at the Massachusetts General Court, and after getting permission to extend the borders of English settlements, he participated in the founding of Windsor, Connecticut, at the site of a trading post established just a few years earlier. From there, he served as magistrate and a military leader for Connecticut Colony. Connecticut Colony started as a Puritan congregation of settlers from Massachusetts Bay. If you recall from my earlier video, the goal of the Massachusetts Bay Company was to make the entirety of what is now New England a Puritan settlement, despite the fact that there were already people living there. As you can imagine, Mason and the other colonists staking out claims caused some issues with their neighbors, and some of the tribes refused to trade with anyone but the Dutch. It didn't take long for war to start. In 1637, Mason earned the nickname Conqueror of the Pequots when he led a raid against them just outside Mystic, Connecticut. It was considered a turning point for the English, and they secured their foothold in the region in the Treaty of Hartford of 1638, where the concession for stopping the massacre known as the Pequot War was for the Pequots to give up their lands and culture. The very name Pequot was banned, and any survivors were to become part of the English allied tribes, the Narragansett or Mohegan. By 1655, the English settlers had claimed all of the Pequot land in the region, even the land their allies were supposed to get in return for helping in the 1630s. As time passed, the tribes were pushed further and further away from their homes, and their numbers dwindled. The 1670s saw King Philip's War, another massacre but against several tribes, including the Narragansetts and Wampanoags. In the 1980s, almost 350 years after their civilization was massacred and legally banned, the Mashantucket Pequots were granted rights to their lands outside Mystic, Connecticut under the Connecticut Indian Land Claim Settlement. You may know that area today as Foxwoods. After the Pequot War, Mason settled in Saybrook, Connecticut, but relocated to what would be Norwich, Connecticut in 1659. In the 1660s, he served as Deputy Governor of Connecticut and participated in writing the Connecticut Charter. He also served as acting governor of Connecticut when then-Governor Winthrop traveled to England. He became known simply as the Major, a highly respected man and town elder. He died in 1672 and was buried in Norwich alongside other founders. It's now known as Founder Cemetery or Mason Cemetery. It's hidden off a residential street and behind a closed gate. It's not to be confused with the Old Burying Ground or Old Norwich Town Cemetery, which is sometimes called the Colonial Cemetery. The founder graves are no longer individually marked, and Mason's part of the cemetery contains only a founder's memorial. A statue of John Mason was unveiled at the site of Mason's massacre in Mystic in 1889, but in 1996 it was relocated to near the site of Mason's 1634 home, the Palisado Green, across the street from Windsor Historical Society and the Colonial Town Cemetery. During the civil unrest about 5 years ago, discussion on its appropriateness led to a town vote to move the statue into the Historical Society grounds so it can gain a more educational perspective. But moving it to its new permanent home inside the museum has been held up. Money seems to be standing in the way. There's also a statue of Mason at the Connecticut State House, but the State Capitol Preservation and Restoration Commission has voted against its removal. If you want to read more about the monuments, I've linked the news articles in the text below this video. Also, please do check out the Windsor Historical Society. I had a great visit to their museum when I was photographing cemeteries in Connecticut, and they have regular events and educational opportunities that encompass the whole story of the region, not just the glories of the conquerors.